My name is Lexi Cuddy. I like to race a lot with all my friends, and I ride a PW50, and I love to race. 5 years old.
Where do you live?
Canada.
Coming Up Next Time podcast is made possible with help from our friends at Bow Valley DJ, Yeti Mechanical Systems, as well as Built to Ride. If you enjoy this podcast, one of the best ways you can help out is to share it with a friend. Share links to your favorite episodes on your socials. If you wish to contribute directly, head over to www.comingupnexttime.com and become a patron. All funds raised will go towards our giveaways, as well as they help out local clubs through our sponsorship program. Coming Up Next Time is a proud sponsor of the Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders Association. Since 2004, Rocky Mountain Dirt Riders Association has been working to take care of our local Alberta trail systems. Whether you're an experienced rider or new to the sport, the RMDRA welcomes you. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Coming Up Next Time podcast. I'm your host, Barrymore. My next guest is a trailblazing transgender athlete and professional mountain bike racer. She made headlines in the early 2000s for her participation in women's mountain bike events, sparking controversy and debate within the sports community. But she didn't let that backlash stop her. Instead, she continued to compete and achieve considerable success, becoming a national champion and an outspoken advocate for transgender rights. In this episode, we talk about her journey becoming a champion both on and off the racecourse, as well as her efforts to encourage women to take up dirt biking. Join us as we dive into the world of professional mountain biking and hear from one of its most inspiring and influential figures. Coming up next, this is Michelle Dumaresq. You know, don't say anything you don't want to have shared by accident, but I normally don't share anything until we say go. Everything else just sort of like whatever. And in most of the episodes,
my life's kind of an open book anyway, so I don't really say too much.
Yeah, I'd say I mean, not all of us have a documentary, right? Like,
True.
So things, I don't know, because like we chat a lot from when we first started talking, and you know, from our first hello till today, you're going through some things, and I just want to know if you want to talk about any of that stuff, or you want to keep it off the, like, out of bounds.
No, I'm totally good because it's actually, I find it sort of relevant. You know, like I said, I honestly don't care how much sort of trans type of content we talk about because I know you've already talked to Alexis, and like I'm 100% if you want to talk trans related content or you don't. I honestly, it doesn't matter to me. But what I've been going through in the last couple of months with this identity issue, I think is kind of it's not unrelated to a lot of athletes that retire from racing going through sort of an identity crisis as well.
Yeah, that's right. Like,
and
I think that's my feel. Is you've
yeah, that's the way I looked at it too. And like, you know, this one is sort of specific because I'm going to throw the word gender in front of it.
Yeah. But
there is an athlete identity crisis that happens, or for some, that when you finish a life of professional racing, and then all of a sudden you stop and the media attention goes away and all these, you know, the team treatment and all these things just they go away. You move on to another phase, and you can. I think a lot of athletes would get into a position where they're facing an identity crisis before the next, you know, before they settle into the next life as well. And so I don't know if it's that different. You know, I
don't think it is.
So
my take on it was like 100%. Like the way I saw it, I guess, is it like you're an athlete first, then you became a trans athlete, and I feel like your trans identity and your athletic identity became an identity, and then over time, just sort of like you're no longer that person, we'll say, because you're not in that chapter anymore. You're finding the new Michelle. And and like we're about the same age. Like I don't know how old you are. I think I'm 47.
52.
Yeah, so like 52. We're really close, right? Like, and I'm like myself, it's the same thing, going through the same thing, finding the new me. So I don't think it's really all that weird or
I don't
unexpected.
think it's weird.
No.
Yeah, the only difference is I'm throwing gender identity in front of mine. You know, other people go through what, everyone says is midlife crisis,
but
or,
whatever.
you just get, whatever you want to label it as. It doesn't really matter. Mine is maybe a little more specific as far as what I'm going through, but tons of people, like, I've been just super open about this. Like, my whole last 4 or 5 months, I've just been really, really open about what I'm going through. And it's amazing the amount of people that have, especially women, that have said, yeah, I feel you, because I can relate, especially living where I do, up in the mountains, middle of nowhere. And it is so easy to just slip into that, jeans, leggings, flannel, every day. Don't take care of yourself because nobody's looking.
Yeah.
And it's everyone I talk to is like, yeah, I can totally relate. I understand what you're going through in a way. And I'm like, yeah, you know what?
I don't want to cut you off, but I feel like we're already sort of in it. So I'm just going to let you know that it'll probably be just going from now.
That's fine. I'm just gonna. I have a tendency to just ramble and talk. Like, anytime I was doing media interviews, sometimes just ramble on.
You've done a lot of them, hey? Like,
oh God, in 2002 and 2003, when I first made the national team, it just blew up. Like, I was getting media from all over the world, and this is pre-social media days, right? So, you gotta, and they're incredibly good at tracking you down. And my email address was online intentionally because I wanted other trans people to be able to find me. So if you did some digging in the right place, you could find my email address. Well, of course, they all found it. And then next thing I know, I got the news station showing up at my work, and it was just wild. And without any guidance either, right? You're just an average person. I mean, I'm an athlete, but I was not coached on how to handle the media at all. And I adopted a plan to just, if I didn't tell them the story, they were just going to write it anyway and make it, fill in the blanks themselves.
Yep.
So I thought, you know what? If I just tell these media people, these are, journalists, reporters, whatever, if I just tell them the whole story and I don't shut up, then I honestly, like, they would call me or whatever, or contact me with a list of questions, and I never even gave them a chance to answer those questions because I just wouldn't stop talking. And I wrote the stories myself because people are lazy, and I'm like, if I give you so much content and you can just literally copy and paste it, you're just going to write what I just said.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, if you go back through my, Google my name and go back through my media stuff, you'll see that I wrote most of the story.
Yeah, I can there's a lot of common.
Yeah.
Very good fact checking, I guess.
Well, you know what? There was a ton of media, and I'm talking like big stuff too, not just local media. I'm like Oprah, HBO Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, 60 Minutes, all these big media outlets, Sports Illustrated, all these, Outside Magazine, all these media coming together, different, types of media. But it was pre-social, right?
Yeah.
So, that's the difference. And I've said this multiple times to people on Instagram, TikTok, and stuff, is that it was a different time before social, like, because the media wasn't instant. You didn't have this one-on-one connection with everyone out there, and you didn't have this instant hate.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there just wasn't. I mean, we had forums back then, and I would actually go on some of the mountain bike forums, and I'd be reading the stuff, and I'd comment quite a bit, right? Like, someone's like, yeah, your chromosomes are this. I'm like, how the hell do you know what my chromosomes are? Don't make assumptions. There's all sorts of chromosomal variations, right? So, yeah, I don't know, just my media journey was kind of strange. Now, fortunately, there's enough trans athletes that have come up in my wake that have taken the heat off me. So I don't get those calls from New York Times anymore, the Washington Post, whenever a trans athlete does something, which used to be every time there was an Olympics came up, or Leah Thomas, won some race, like someone like that, they would call me for a contest, comment. And now there's so many other trans athletes that I'm like, that flag has been passed on, which is, kind of good in a way. It's kind of what I was actually hoping for originally.
Yeah.
And inevitably, sooner or later, other trans athletes are going to come along. I'm retired. I've been retired for over 10 years. And, it's bound to happen sooner or later.
So one of the things I want to talk about, I guess we could go back to the beginning. It was like 2001 or 2002?
So you're talking about like how I got into the racing scene, or?
Yeah, sure. We'll start with the racing.
Okay. So I've been a mountain biker all through the 90s, right? Like from the original, even in the 80s, I was into mountain bikes when they were just really archaic. You know, we're talking rim brakes, the first suspension that ever came out. I broke a million bikes when I was on Vancouver's North Shore, and the terrain there is just insanely hard, right? And so I grew up in BMX and mountain biking, and this was I think it was in 2000. I was riding up Gross Mountain in Vancouver to meet up with a group of guys, and I was running late. So I was trying to get up the mountain as quick as I could. I got up to the meeting point, and they were already gone. And I'm like, they were riding a very sort of remote trail, and I didn't want to tackle it by myself. So I actually turned around, went back down the road to another, more well-established trail. I come down the road, and I come around the corner, and here is 12 women and a camera crew. And they pull up, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? And they're like, we're making a women's mountain bike film. And I went, okay, that's cool. Do you mind if I tag along? Like, I know this trail really well. And the first feature on this trail is like a 7-foot drop-off, right? And they all kind of looked at each other like, is anyone going to, do this? And I'm like, well, I ride this all the time. I'll just do it. And I did it, and the camera crews had set up, and they all kind of looked at each other like, who the hell are you? So I rode that whole day with them, and they're like, do you race? Because I figured out they were all racers from all over BC.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I've never even been to a race. And they're like, the irony, because some of the ones who invited me to go racing are the ones that protested me later on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was the start of it. It literally, if I hadn't been at that right place at that right time, I may have never started racing. So all these girls just kind of like, they all knew each other. It was like a little elite clique but welcoming. Don't get me wrong, they didn't know I was trans at that time. And so I just went, I rode, and I was in this women's mountain bike film, and next thing you know, I show up at a race. And that was it. Rest is history. I won that race. And I won the 3 after that. And then they pulled my license. The Cycling BC suspended my license because there was so much controversy.
Yeah.
And so they deliberated over the winter. I was fortunately training because I expected to get that license back. And so I was training over the winter. And March of 2001, got my license back and just dove in head first. Like, I went all across Canada. I was doing all the Canada Cups. And yeah, it's just that, one of those weird moments in life that just changes the direction of your life.
Yeah. I just have a question about that time. So, like, when they pulled your license, okay, we'll back up. You'd never raced before, and now you've done your first race, and we'll say your first 5 races, and you won. And so, was that it? Was that like, were you hooked now for racing?
Oh God, was I ever? Yeah, because racing, like I competed in snowboarding before, in the late 80s, early 90s. So I had the racing bug in me. I did motocross when I was like 12. So I've been around racing before. I just never really the culture of Vancouver's North Shore is actually, in those days, was kind of anti-racing, or it was the opposite of the racing community, right? It was people pushing limits, jumping off cliffs, and breaking bikes constantly, and just doing these things that the bikes weren't really designed for.
Okay.
And they really had a mentality of anti-racing. Not that they would come out and say, we hate racers or something like that. It just, most of the people I knew weren't actually racers. They were just
I can remember those days.
Off. Yeah, and they were just hucking themselves off cliffs and building jumps in the forest, and the racing thing seemed to organize. It seemed to, something that we were living this sort of counterculture, almost like and even the magazines were the North Shore, all these ladder bridges up through the trees and stuff were just, that's what we were pursuing, right? And then all of a sudden I got exposed to racing, and the bug hit me about the speed, because the speed took everything that I had trained with the guys up to that point, all these jumps and drops, and then you add the speed into it, and it just fit me like a glove. And I was like, yeah, you know what, this is something I want to do. Not like it was my, I didn't grow up, I want to be a professional mountain bike racer on the World Cup circuit one day.
Yeah.
And that's just how it evolved. And next thing I knew, I'm in Europe racing. And it was just, it happened so fast. It was just like flew across country, did a couple Canada Cups, won those. Next thing you know, I'm at the Worlds in France, I think, that year. And kind of just had to pinch myself and go, what the heck just happened, Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty crazy time, and that opened just so many doors,
It's kind of like I watched your documentary twice since the first time you shared it with me, and then I'm still kind of foggy because whatever 2022 was just a weird year. I don't forget.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, anybody who has weird memories for that year, I don't blame you. Some of us are still in 2020, but it's kind of, so the girls in the video that were like, we'll call them the villains, saying the weird and pretty hurtful things.
Antagonist.
Okay, yeah. The antagonist, and you're the protagonist. We'll do it that way.
Yeah.
And so are those the girls that had welcomed you to racing?
So those girls were there that day we made that
mountain
bike film.
Yeah.
And so that's why I said the irony of the fact that they were the ones that were passing around these petitions, trying to do everything they could to get me removed because I was winning. And, this is not something new. This is, if you're trans as an athlete and you get second place or third place, nobody gives a damn.
Yeah.
But the second you win, it's unfair, right? And this whole, I don't want to, we can do a deep dive if you want on the issue of fairness in sports, but the argument has not changed. So that was 2001.
Yeah.
I'm still seeing that same damn argument today with trans athletes. The argument has not changed. And it's so ridiculous. Someone telling me that it's unfair. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe in your mind because you're a recreational athlete, so you're not on the World Cup circuit. This isn't your job. No one's paying you to do it. But let me tell you, in professional racing, or professional athletes in general, it's all about maximizing your advantages, right? And so that is the dichotomy that I had to deal with back then. And I'm like, the argument has not changed. So these girls that were passing out petitions trying to get me banned, there is a clip in the documentary of the race official at that time denying their petition because I had an active license given to me by Cycling BC, which is related to Cycling Canada, which is related to the UCI, the international governing body. So, fortunately, living in Canada, I was able to change my birth certificate. My birth certificate says female, right?
Yeah.
And that was the reason that I got to race, both locally and internationally, because Canada was progressive enough in the 90s that allowed you to change a birth certificate. That opened the doors. And had it not been for that, it would have been a way different thing. So I never had to sue for my right to race. Back in I think it was late 70s, early 80s with Renee Richards, who was the tennis player, she had to actually take the Tennis Association to court for her right to play, right? And I grew up with Renee Richards as sort of this kind of idol, she'd kind of done it first. She was like the first trans athlete she didn't make a mockery of it. She was just a trans athlete.
Yeah.
And so I kind of grew up with this woman being a bit of an idol. And then as soon as I made it onto the world stage and had all this media coverage, somebody went and interviewed her, and she was a bit of a recluse, so they managed to track her down. And she told me to stop. She told me to cease and desist and that I'm on a bad path and all this. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
you're my hero.
Here's this woman that I looked up to. And, at that point, that really hit me. And I went, you know what, screw this. I am going to be that positive role model for other trans kids from this point forward. Like, I'm going to put myself out there because I don't want another kid getting disappointed, because literally in those days, there wasn't a lot of trans people in the media, certainly not positive representations.
No.
And so, yeah, that one just, as soon as she said I should stop and cease and desist, and I'm like, damn, bitch, you've been there. Like, you know exactly where I'm at right now, and you're telling me to stop. And just because that was even her, it was in late 70s, early 80s, that was a different era. It was all super, super sensationalized. Whereas mine, I tried to keep it more focused on the athletics part of it and my racing, and people would ask me about transition and love life and all these things, and I'm like, no, racing. I'm an athlete first, trans second, you know.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, well, I mean, yeah, you are an athlete, so you just happen to be trans. Like,
that's exactly how I looked at it, and I was like, you know what, my path of life led me to this place. I didn't choose this. I didn't grow up dreaming of standing on top of a podium one day.
Yeah.
It's literally just a bunch of opportunities that came up. I made the right choices. I made it to that world stage and stood on that podium and heard the Canadian anthem played. It was pretty, pretty momentous at the time. Like, it was a big deal, you know.
For you, or would you say, like, because we none of
it was a big deal for everyone.
Yeah,
it was obviously a big deal for me, but the messages, oh my God, the hundreds and hundreds of messages I get. Again, in those days, it was, pretty social. So it was on forums, email, the chats, just the
not very private.
outpouring. Yes, it was very one-to-one.
Yeah.
But just hundreds of messages from people all over the world going, I just didn't know anyone like you existed, and you've given me hope. And I was, this is dark, but these people, I was going to kill myself before I saw your story, right? And you've given me hope that one day I could be an athlete too, right? And I just like, how does that not affect you? How does that not give you some drive and purpose to get up the next morning and just be a role model for who I didn't have as a kid, right? And the same reason I made the documentary, that is exactly the reason I made that documentary, is because I didn't have that representation when I was a kid. There wasn't. And, and it was in the early 2000s, it was a time where society was changing. People were opening their minds and their hearts up a little bit to gay people's acceptance, and trans people, even not, I don't call it acceptance, people were just like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
What is a trans person?
I'd say Gen X was a little pioneery in the way of like, let your freak flag fly. Like
100%. And it was the boomers generation.
They were repressive.
They were more repressive, and they're like, oh, you're going against the grain, right? Yeah. You're rocking the boat.
Yeah. And
I'm like, fuck yeah, I am. I'm building a whole new boat over here, and anyone who wants to get on can come. And yeah, so
my feeling, like, it's hard. Like right now, I guess if you come out as a trans athlete, it's a little bit fashionable, and people would be doing it to like get a leg up, I guess. If whereas like in your time, like in our youth, it would certainly not be a leg up. Like you're basically ruining sponsorship opportunities. You're like getting ostracized. It was like a more hostile space to do it versus today. You have like,
it was still hostile then.
Today I feel it's less hostile, even though everybody thinks it's more hostile.
It's less hostile.
Yeah.
Like in those days, I got my first professional kind of contract with a mountain bike company, and I was with them pretty much through my entire career.
Nice.
But at first they were like, okay, we're going to send you 3 bikes. Don't tell anyone we sent them to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to support you on the road, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Just don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we're not sure if our corporate backers are okay with this, right? And it wasn't until I started doing a bunch of media and they saw that I was this happy, positive person, and the shit storm going on around me, I stayed smiling and positive and giving the same story over and over and over again. And they eventually kind of came around, but still I wasn't like officially part of the team, like I was always on the peripheral. And I was okay because I knew that was baby steps, right? Like I knew that, this team, which is a big, well-known mountain bike brand.
Are you allowed to say their name now?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's Santa Cruz. Like Santa Cruz Bikes. Rob Rascop was just an amazing guy, and he was fully supportive. And he's just like, I'm going to face some backlash from this, but here you go, and just kept sending me bikes and said, I got your back, but I can't be out front of you. Like I can't
break trail.
Yeah. So he's like, I support what you do, and I just want to make sure that you can make this dream come true, kind of thing. And I'm like, I appreciate that, baby steps, And there certainly wasn't a lineup of other teams willing to put me on their factory teams. So, I did a lot of it kind of as a privateer.
Yeah.
And actually loved that I did it that way, because I had my racing van. So in our races that went, across the U.S., I would just drive. And the team, they'd have a team bus or they'd fly or whatever. And I'd be like, no, you know what? I'm in Virginia right now. I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. and see the Smithsonian because I have a week between races. Nobody else got to go to the Smithsonian. And, so I lived it as a privateer, and I actually really enjoyed it. There's definitely hard moments because you're, middle of nowhere by yourself. But, that was how I made it work. And nowadays, you still don't see a lot of trans women on factory teams. Kate Weatherly, she was racing pro downhill, and she's got good support from Da Vinci, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's still, you think 15 years later, is there really, has there been that representation yet?
No,
I'm not 100% sure. There's trans athletes in the Olympics now. There's, but even that comes with its own issues. They've got their own ball to push up a hill kind of thing, the same way I did. And
I think athletes, period, have their own ball to push up a hill. It just
hell yeah,
weighs a different amount depending on who you are, I guess.
100%, and and it's just one of those things that throws a little bit of a different wrench into your plans. But I made it work. I had a really, really supportive partner, and my partner at that time was trying to be on the Canadian Olympic women's hockey team. So we would spend 6 months. I'd be supporting her in the winter, and she'd spend 6 months supporting me in the summer.
Nice.
And it actually, unfortunately, she didn't make it. She was good, but she was too old for the team. So nowadays, had it been 10 years previous, she would have been on the Olympic team. She was that good.
Yeah.
But nowadays, they're all 16, 17, 18 years old, and the Olympic community, if they're going to put money into you, they want to get three Olympics out of you. And my ex at that time was too old. They only would have got the 2010s.
Oh.
So.
No, that's too bad.
Yeah, it happens. Amazing hockey player, though. Oh, beautiful to watch her play.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So this whole endeavor, I guess, has been the passenger in your car your whole life, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, you've always been Michelle, the trans mountain biker, and every time the media talks to you, they always talk to you through that lens. Is that fair to say, or?
Oh yeah. That label follows me around, and I've been open. I chose to be open about my history and stuff, and so I don't mind it. I honestly don't mind it. It's just a part of my history. There's definitely other trans folks out there that they don't want to talk about it. They just move on. I chose to be open because I don't know if I really had that choice. It's just because there's so much crossover, especially in BC with different sports. So, like I said, I was involved in snowboarding, wakeboarding, all those things in the early 90s, and the same athletes are doing snowboarding and going to competitions that are doing mountain biking. So it's like, and I've got a fairly unique class name, so it's not like I didn't have a chance to really be stealth, right?
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I carry that label, trans label, and really, it's just part of who I am. I don't mind it, you know.
No, how could you mind it? Like, at least I don't feel that you could, seeing as how
some people do.
Yeah,
some people, yeah. There's definitely some out there that are like, you know, once they transition, they just want to be, you know, female or male or whatever, and drift into the woodwork and just live the rest of their lives. Like they've dealt with their birth defects and move on. You know,
that's something I never thought about. Like so, a transition. It's like the time in between point A and point B, right? Like
that's by definition what it means. Yeah.
Yeah. So like on a vert ramp and whatever, but so would you say the world never let you transition? Like they sort of held you in the between?
No, because I transitioned so long ago. Like I transitioned at 18. Well, I started my journey at 18 anyway.
I think the first day is the start of it. Like once you decided yes, and you don't turn back, that was the day.
You don't turn back, and you start coming out to people and living your life and all this. But by definition, you know, in that 7-year period between when I came out and when I, you know, sort of had the you know, gender affirming surgeries and stuff, and then at that point I could have just literally drifted into the woodwork and just lived the rest of my life. I've always had the privilege of passing, you know, like, so I've just walked through life. You know, if you didn't know I was trans, you could walk past me, you'd never know, right? I'm very lucky that I'm not really tall. I'm just kind of average, and I would have had that opportunity to just blend into the rest of my life, go on living. People wouldn't have known if I didn't tell them. And, you know, it's just, the thought crossed my mind, don't get me wrong, you know, like sometimes you're like, well, wouldn't it be nice if you could just, you know, just race and not have to have the media putting microphones in your face going, you know, we know you got fifth, but we want to talk to you. And I'm like, why aren't you talking to the first person? Like, she won the race, yet you're over here interviewing me, right? And, you know, I'd go to race in Europe, and they'd be walking down these little, you know, ski towns and stuff like that, and people would be pointing. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I didn't realize that, you know, every time I'd show up in a town, I was on the nightly news or whatever the night before, right?
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so I'd show up at these towns and, you know, different reactions. Some people are pointing and some people are coming up for an autograph, right? Like, it's just a weird reaction. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. People are like pointing and yelling at me in a different language, you know. It was a pretty surreal experience, actually. But, you know, again, had my face not been plastered all over the media, I would have been anonymous. I look like any other girl walking down the street, right? And I'm just there to race a bike. And unfortunately, this trans baggage or whatever you want to call it just followed me around, and I had to deal with it. And it's what it is.
That's fair. So now you're all growing up and living in the back country. I won't say where, but living your best life. Like anybody who follows you on Instagram knows you ride dirt bikes, you ride snowmobiles, you live in God's country. Yeah. Like, how's that?
I send it down my driveway on a Olympic skeleton.
Fuck.
Have you seen those?
No.
I've been posting a few TikToks recently. I have these Olympic style skeletons.
Yeah.
Head first, no brakes.
Oh my God.
And you're 3 inches off the ground. Oh. And I have this long, 500-foot long steep driveway, and it is insane. And then beside my driveway, I actually build a 500-foot luge track, like full on big berms. It's insane. And this little Olympic skeleton thing I have it was so much fun. I went and bought 2 so that we could race.
Yeah.
And I have the entire neighborhood comes over. I live in this tiny little community on the top of a mountain. There's only 60 houses here, and we're all friends. And on a weekend, my driveway will be full of kids, and we shuttle, you know, the kids up with the side-by-sides, and then we rip down on these skeletons. And they're literally head first, no brakes, 50 kilometers an hour by the time you're at the bottom of my driveway, 3 inches off the snow. And so, yeah, yes, I'm in mountain bikes and dirt bikes and sleds and anything that gives me a rush. And these skeletons are an absolute rush. If I was in Calgary, I'd probably be joining some sort of skeleton recreational league or something, you know?
Oh my God. Is it so? It was always your
Oh,
dream
yeah,
to
no,
die doing sports?
I'm just in for the thrill. I tell you, like, I'm just a thrill junkie, and the dirt bikes. I've ridden dirt bikes since I was 7 years old. Like, I grew up on two wheels, right?
Yeah.
So dirt bikes, BMX, mountain bikes, like just anything with two wheels, I'm all over. And so I've always been on dirt bikes. The mountain bike thing was literally I did both. So I was doing a little bit of motocross in my early teens, transitioned into some of those 24-hour races, the cross countries and stuff, and then kind of stopped through my mid-late teens as I was dealing with some gender issues, and then through the years got other dirt bikes and stuff. So dirt bikes have always been a big part of my life, but it wasn't until I stopped racing. And once I was done racing, it's really weird. Probably other athletes go through this too, but I used to train every single day. That was my job, right? So if I wasn't at a race, I was training. And then you retire and you're like, okay, I'm so sick of just training every day. And then I'd hop back on my mountain bike, and my brain still says, let's go down this trail at World Cup speeds. And my body is saying, slow down, bitch. You haven't been in the gym in a week, you know? And so what I found is I was getting sketchy. I was like, because my brain is still saying, we can ride this trail at full-on World Cup speeds, hair on fire, on the edge. And my body was like, yeah, you know what? You back down a few pounds here. You haven't been hitting the gym as much. You certainly haven't been on your bike as much. And I started to feel like I wasn't in tune anymore. Like I'd reached a certain level, and to back down from that level, it wasn't giving me the same thrill anymore.
Okay.
That's when I fell back in love with dirt bikes, and the dirt bikes replaced that speed and that technical ability. And I felt like I was learning again, you know, because you ride amongst the right people, they push your level and they push you out of your comfort zone. And then I just fell back in love with dirt bikes. And nowadays I ride very little mountain bikes now compared to, like, I'm on my dirt bike like 3-4 days a week. I have a track in my yard. I can ride literally right up my driveway and be in the trails in about 2 minutes.
Nice.
So yeah, it's pretty good transition from the mountain bike world to the dirt bike world. And then in the winter, same with sledding. It's like, you know, sledding is different. I've been into big mountain sledding for like 15 years. So, you know, that one it's a little different. It's not that two-wheel, single track, technical, you know.
Yeah.
When you're on a sled, you can pick we're in subalpine, we can pick our routes between the trees, and, you know, it's still super technical, but it's different. You make your own trail when you're sledding. And dirt bikes and mountain bikes at those speeds are super technical, and you have to be on. So yeah, it's just a different vibe. Like, I love sledding, don't get me wrong, it's in my blood, but, you know, these days, 300 two-stroke is what gets my blood going, you know.
Nice. So, where's your Western Canada, where's your favorite place to ride that most people have access to, I guess, outside of your driveway?
Yeah, so Kamloops is a mecca for a lot of different sports, right? So Kamloops is just one of those places that is, you know, you point in any direction from downtown and you are pointing at a trail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, dirt bikes, mountain bikes, and various different sports, actually. So Kamloops is just an incredible place to ride. You could ride here for a week and never ride the same trail twice. Revy is a place I go to every year with the girls. We rent a cabin. They have a big women's dirt bike festival that I lead. So that's another one. And then Kelowna also has an amazing group of women riders there that we camp there and ride there all the time, and their network is fantastic. So those are my three main. Down at the coast, you know, Vancouver and on the island, they have pretty amazing trails as well. So I don't know. I'm in love with BC. I used to live in Colorado. That was an amazing place to ride too. So yeah, everywhere's so diverse, right? Like Kamloops has its own nature of trails. Revy is totally different again. The coast is different. Like, it's just all these places, the more you ride different ones, you become a better all-around rider because they are different, you know?
Yeah, I've ridden most of the spaces, and they're definitely, I haven't been on the coast yet, but all the other spots you mentioned, and they are all a lot different. A lot different.
Oh, yeah.
Different amount of roots, different texture in the earth. Just how
And
tight
it makes you a
gets.
better It's so different than when I was mountain biking. You know, we'd race in, 1 week we'd be in Colorado or California or Virginia, and then you hop on a plane, and next thing you know, you're in Italy or Austria or France. And so all these places are different, right? The soil conditions are different, the terrain's different, the steepness, the technical parts of it. Now I watch these World Cup races now for mountain bikes, and they built these massive jumps everywhere now. I'm like, I would have been all over that. I'm like, why didn't you build us those big jumps back then? Like, we had some, but now that they've kind of mixed the whole bike park riding with the World Cup racing.
Yeah.
So now you got jumps right into the steeps, and like, it's just amazing.
That's cool. Where do you see it going? Like World Cup racing, since I feel like there's a portion, we'll say in the 2010s, where safety was paramount, but now it seems like Red Bull is paramount.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that because what Red Bull is doing with a lot of sports, is pushing these limits. So yes, downhill is spectacular because of the speeds, right? But then you've got Red Bull Rampage, which is all the guys hucking themselves off these monster cliffs that they spend a week building these lines and stuff in Utah. And then you got, Red Bull doing every other crazy ass sport that you can imagine, right? And, the best thing they ever did was Red Bull Media House, and just putting an actual dedicated media company together to promote these sports, and not just mine, but dozens and dozens of other ones. And I'm all in for it. I mean, I consume tons of media, and these dudes that are jumping off tops of mountains with squirrel suits on, I think it's the craziest shit I've ever seen. But
absolutely,
but I'm all in for it. And you know what? If they die with a smile on their face. But good on companies like Red Bull for really promoting that part of the sport and making it more mainstream and exposing more of the general public to what we do. Like, I know with my sport, downhill mountain biking is not in the Olympics. It probably never will be. But other cycling disciplines are in the Olympics. So I got a fair amount of attention because it was cycling. But then my discipline of cycling is not in the Olympics. So the coverage was perhaps, the general public saw it as this fringe extreme sport, which it kind of is, and is it that much different than jumping off a cliff with a wingsuit on? We're still racing down a mountain at 75 kilometers an hour through really rough terrain and over big jumps as fast as you can. So it's kind of the same thing. And Red Bull is one of the few that were, back in those days, the Red Bull media. Now there's lots of other companies covering this stuff, but what they were able to capture and the way they captured it was finally showed us how fast we're going and how big these jumps are and all this stuff. So yeah, I'm just super into whatever Red Bulls do or other media companies are putting out these days, whether it's sledding and snow biking and wingsuits and, guys doing triples on BMXs. I'm just like, I'm all into it. I just love it. Yeah. People pushing themselves, like, like I said, it's where's the limit? I have no idea, right? You look at the technology in dirt bikes, mountain bikes, all this stuff now. The suspension, little onboard computers on their suspension. Like, is it futuristic? Maybe, but really it's just progression, you know?
Yeah, I think that it's like the average rider gets access to what the factory teams used to have like 5 or 10 years ago.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's just leveling the field once the costs come down,
well,
I guess.
Yeah, and the technology, like, is changing so quick. And that can be hard to keep up for the average person, right? Maybe less so in dirt bikes, actually, because the technology in dirt bikes the generic technology hasn't really changed. The design of the frame, the linkage suspension, nothing has changed in years, right?
Yeah, fuel injection and electric starter, like a modern
convenience. And you honestly look at it like, I look where snowmobiles have gone now. They have changed so much in 10 years. The positions we stand in, the way the ergonomics of the machine, the way the machines handle in the mountains. I have a starter on my sled that doesn't have a battery or a starter motor, and it still starts my sled by a capacitor. And I'm like, that's pretty cool tech. That's really neat. And how they've made the sleds. When I bought my XM in 2013, when the XM chassis first came out, I went, game changer. This is an absolute 100% game changer. How could they possibly ever make it better?
Does XM mean all mountain?
No, XM is just
okay.
It's the mountain definition of the Rev platform. Okay. So this Rev platform, XM was the mountain version of the Rev. And when that came out, I said, that is a game changer right there. Sign me up. I'll take one. And then I went, how could they possibly make this better? And in 2017, they came up with Gen 4. And next thing you know, it was better. And now they have the Gen 5. Every time I say they can't possibly make this sled better, they do, So the technology is changing rapidly. I just feel like kind of the dirt bike part of it is
slow.
Just kind of stayed the same realistically, because the machines are so good. You go into a dealership right now and buy yourself a KTM Rasky or Gas 300. That is an absolute weapon right out of the box, almost right out of the box. Just go ride it, Yes, when we get to a certain level, you're going to tune suspension, you're going to tune things, but it is still an amazing machine right out of the box. And I remember back in the early days of downhill, we used to buy a frame, we would buy a fork, we'd buy cranks, we'd buy wheels, we'd buy brakes, and we'd build our own bikes, because they weren't. You didn't walk into a store and buy a downhill bike. It didn't exist.
No, but you still spent $7,000.
Oh hell yeah! And I was a welder, fabricator / machinist. So I would sometimes make my own parts, because the stock linkage and stuff, I would just break it constantly. So I would end up machining my own parts and sending pictures off to these companies and here's what I did. And next thing you know, the next year, they've incorporated my design on their linkage arms, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Glad I could help. But for what I ride, in those days back on the North Shore, we were breaking stuff so much. And now you look at the current state of dirt bikes and mountain bikes, walk into a store, plop your money down, walk out with a damn near race ready machine, So that part has really changed. We used to have to do a lot of modifications to a dirt bike to make it especially trail ready. In the old days, we were adapting basically motocross race bikes to work in the trails, and you had to change so much about them to make them work on a trail. Weight the flywheel, bigger sprockets, just all these, full suspension overhauls. It just had to do so much to make them work. And now you just literally go in, plop your money down, open that box up, and go. That's really changed for sure.
I think it's sweet that we can get bush ready bikes on the rack, if you will, versus having because it opens not that that's a good thing, because some people say fewer people on the trails is better, but I'd just rather have a bunch of people out there buying bikes, try the trails, figure out it's not good for them, and then sell the bikes to the rest of us for tax free. But the more that are sold, the faster it advances the technology, because there's more money for R&D and all that stuff.
Yeah, but you know what? The one thing I'm not seeing
what's that?
Is, and if any of the manufacturers are ever listening to something like this, is if they're not seeing that the women's market's exploding right now, then they're got fucking blinders on. Because,
that's not true. The Free Ride is marketed for women, and Beta has a bike that's marketed to women.
100%. Okay, so just thinking of the Beta Cross Trainer, right?
Yeah.
Which is a
Sweet
you know
bike.
a seven. That's an absolutely sweet bike with the worst suspension ever, right? The free ride, brilliant little bike. I actually rode one for a day, and it was like a mountain bike with a motor in it. It was just so much fun to ride. Worst suspension ever, you know.
I hear what you're saying now. Yeah.
Yes. So there are a lot of women that I ride with that are short, right? And you look at even the ones that are well known, Megs and Crystal and stuff, that are, you know, these girls they're pretty short. I'm 5'9", so I've got my, you know, the advantage that the bike was almost built for me, kind of thing.
Yep.
But where is the high level Beta X Trainer? Where is the RR version of the X Trainer? You know, KTM has just, I don't know if they have a ban in the free ride now, or they're figuring out what to do with electric versus gas. And fair enough, you know, KTM's a smart company, and it's like Skidoo. They don't poop without a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they don't know that the women's market is exploding right now. If you go to a trailhead, or, you know, whether it's sledding or dirt biking, 10 years ago, very rare to see another woman there. You know, sometimes you see one, but now you see entire groups of us out there taking over. And sometimes the guys are like, you know, where's your guys? I'm like, oh, we didn't bring any today, you know, like, or sometimes we bring our token guy to, it's always, you know, with my groups that I lead, you know, we have a bit of a saying, and it's like, you can have a dick, just don't be a dick, right? Yep. We're not like, there's often guys on our rides, but if you're out there, you know, showing off and trying to be that guy, you're not welcome in our group, because our group are not beginners. We're good riders, and our pace is fast, and lots of times guys come along. But the market is changing, and you see it at the trailheads now. You see groups of women on sleds, on dirt bikes, on mountain bikes that are just, they're really pushing that part of the sport now, and I see the manufacturers are falling behind. Personal opinion, but I just think they're missing out on an early part of this market exploding, and it is, you know, go on Instagram and TikTok right now and type in, you know, girls that ride, and you're gonna get fucking million posts of girls out there pushing it. And I don't see the manufacturers going, all right, let's, you know, mountain bikes certainly are. There's women's version of mountain bikes come with, you know, narrower bars. You know, the ergonomics are just set up for women's bodies, and I don't see the power sports industry doing the same thing right now, with the exception of Beta maintaining that X Trainer. And the X Trainer, you can do things. You can change the pipe, change the suspension, and it becomes a better bike with the smaller frame.
Yeah.
Why does KTM have a Beta X Trainer size frame option? Why can't you just order it from the factory? Why can't you just, as a girl, walk into a dealership and say, I want the 3/4 size frame when you build my bike. I'll pick it up in 2 months. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
custom shop. I can't remember.
You know what?
There's
I don't run the world.
Oh no, Beta does it. Beta has a custom shop online. You can build your Beta, so you can get the cross trainer with better suspension rate off the bat, like from them pre-ordered.
Can you?
Yeah.
I don't know where. I think that's cool.
I'm pretty sure it was Beta has the build your own. Because when I was looking for Paula, I went through everywhere, and I kept coming back to Beta. She wanted to sit on one, and we couldn't find one to sit on, so she ended up with a Honda. But I feel like whatever, that'll probably be her next bike. Like when she outgrows the Honda. But again, she's like slow to decide that she's outgrown one.
And I have friends of mine in my riding groups that are on X trainers, and these are really good riders. You know, some high level racers and stuff. That now, as they're, you know, not pursuing full time racing anymore, are on X trainers because of the size. You know, they're shorter, and you know, like I said, you know, it's just one of those parts of the industry that's changing right now. In a lot of sports, are changing right now. When, you know, just an influx of women into the sport, and not as a peripheral role, like we're going as a group of women to Revy or to Bear Creek in Kelowna and camping there, and we're organizing our own rides. And these ladies' rides, I've been involved with ladies' rides for 12 years now or something like that, for sledding and now dirt biking. And the ladies' rides back in for sledding years ago, I'm talking like 2012, these girls that I met on the ladies' rides, they became my good friends and still are to this day, just the lasting relationship. So now when I show up to a ladies' ride as a leader, I tell everyone, I'm like, when you go on this ride and you go out in a group that's your level, so you sign up intermediate, you're an intermediate rider, and you go out in this group of 8 women or 10 women or whatever, and someone you vibe with, like, you're like, hey, you and I ride kind of the same. I'm like, get their contact info, because one day your husband's sled is going to be broken down, not be able to go, and you're going to like, oh yeah, that chick I rode with at Blue, yeah, call her.
Yep.
So I'm always trying to promote women connecting with others and forming these communities, and that's essentially what I've tried to build over the years of with sledding and dirt biking is these, and used to be mountain biking back when I was in Vancouver, but just these communities of women, because I find anyway, the vibe is so different amongst women. We support each other, right? Yeah. So you can push yourself past your comfort zone a little bit when you've got 10 other people there trying to catch you. If you mess up a line, there's someone there to catch you, or cheer when you make it. And I've been on lots of the guys' rides that are basically, for better words, pissing contests.
Big dick.
If you didn't make it, well, you're a loser. And where the women are like, oh, go try it again, we got you, right? And I just love that vibe. I really do. And I'm just trying to support it and build it and lead it. And that's what makes me happy these days is, my pro racing days are well behind me, but it doesn't mean I can't be involved with what's currently happening with women in these sports, needing a leader. And I've just always been a leader. Like when I trail ride or sled and stuff, I'm always leading.
Yeah.
So I'm used to it, and I set the tone. So if I'm taking care of everyone, then everyone else gets that vibe of we're here to take care of everyone. There's certain rides that if I'm with a certain group of really fast people, like some days we're like, yeah, this is just a heart rate ride. We're going for a fast pace. We'll wait at the next trail intersection, but we'll say it beforehand. We're just like, okay, we're here for a fast ride today. This isn't let's try things 3 times.
That's fair. So you, I want to go back to the Revy women's ride. When does that take place?
The Triple B, the Revy Triple B. Yeah, it's base bikes and beers or something like that. I don't know what the 3 B's. I think that's what it stands for. My first year at the Triple B was 2014. And with the cool part of the Revy one is it's kind of held, like all the trails there kind of come together. So both halves of the riding area both come together at the dirt bike track, which is also right next to the Glacier Lodge. So they got all the cabins and the big lodge and stuff like that. So they've always kind of held it out of there. So we just go and rent the big cabin. Well, the cool part was all these Alberta girls and the BC girls come together, right? And it doesn't take long for us to get to know it. I knew some of them through sledding. So, sometimes we just come together and it's like, you're like, oh my God, BC versus Alberta. Hell no. It's the exact opposite. It's like just these big groups of women coming together. The Triple B is one of the bigger ones around. So I think we have like, I think it's 75 or 80 women in total broken down into groups. I lead the A group out, and then they have dinners and they have, it's a big event. But Revy is just such a cool place to ride because it's kind of this, they don't have like, Jones has 10 different riding areas. Revy has one, one main one that I'm sure the locals have their own, but the one main riding area. And it's just so perfectly designed for holding events like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things. And then of course COVID came along and messed it up. And it was brought back this year with another Emily Roberts leading it. organizing it and stuff like that. And she did just a fantastic job this year, and everybody left with just a smile on their face. There was clinics put on by Traction E-Reg. We broke down multiple different groups, and like I said, I lead out the A group. Just a really cool gathering of, and the Revy one is a little bit different because you get these Alberta girls coming out from that side.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones around here, the Bear Creek ladies rides and stuff, tend to be more Okanagan, North Thompson, like people, and maybe some people from the coast too.
Okay.
So a little bit different vibe, not different vibe, just different people. And I think they're fantastic because it's just building community. It's all we're doing, right? It's just building a community. And this year, the Bear Creek Ladies Ride in Kelowna, the one in September, had another woman organizing it who did just next level. I'm talking like the best ladies ride, sledding or dirt and biking I've ever been to. We went riding. We came back from riding, and she had a chef making gourmet tacos. So you just hop off your bike, grab a taco.
Oh, man.
Best thing oh my God. It was literally the best thing I've ever had. Maybe next year she'll have a live band or something. I don't know to top that, but it was just, I don't know. I feel bad for the guys because they're not doing the same kind of, there isn't the same kind of organization with the guys don't have these rides.
Yeah.
I guess they don't need it. They got their own groups and stuff, but for the women, it's just, I don't know. This ladies ride in September, I just hope that next year she can even make it better because she did such an amazing job.
So do you have dates for this year for the Bear Creek or for Revy?
I'm just working on everything now. So I'm also doing my own coaching this year as well. So I don't know. It's been a weird year. Like I said, the last part of 2022 was really weird.
Yeah.
Dealing with some personal stuff that I was going through to try to get, I own my own business, so I'm running that, and then organize coaching and guiding and all these other things. It's been a little bit much when my head wasn't 100% in the game.
Yeah.
But, I did some coaching at Bear last year during the ladies ride. Like I did a clinic in the morning, and all the girls, the first thing they said is, "When's your next one? Sign me up."
Nice.
Right? That kind of feedback is what I want to hear. Obviously I'm doing the right thing. I'm presenting these women with technical skills in dirt biking that are just slightly out of their comfort zone, right? So I'm teaching them, just the next step and how to get a little better.
Yeah, incremental growth.
Just incremental growth, and they are just sucking it up, right? And the progression right now, it's a lot of it's mindset, right? So if you get in the right group with the right support and a good coach, you can progress quite quickly and take those skills that you learned in the clinic, take them out on the trails, and then go, yeah, I remember when Michelle told us how to hop this log that's not at a 90-degree angle. Remember that? But here we came, we're riding the trails, and we came across a log that's not at a 90-degree angle. Remember Michelle taught us how to get over it. And they're putting these things into real-world practice, right? And that's the part that makes me happy. So yeah, I'm just working on stuff right now to get everything lined up to do some coaching this year, and I'm well aware Megs and Crystal have their coaching pretty well established. I'm not really trying to step on too many toes.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's not my main business. I own a business, so it's not my main thing. I love coaching. I've always loved coaching, whether it was mountain bikes or dirt bikes or sledding. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm doing it more for me to give back and build community, more so than creating a company or a living.
Yeah,
because Megan and Crystal, I fully 100% support them. Meg's doing a lot of stuff down in the States now. Crystal's got her main clinics going in mostly in, well, not just in BC, but she's moving into Washington now too.
That's sweet.
Fantastic. Like I said, not trying to step on too many toes. I'm seeing it in my own area that
There's
some local
space.
girls are like, you know what? Hey, if local girls are like, yeah, could you come to us? We don't have time to go for a weekend away in Nelson or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, if I can make that happen, I'm going to make that happen.
I have a question then. This is more for the people who want to go to lessons or clinics, and it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. But what could a rider do before they arrive to a clinic in order to be as prepared as possible to start? Like, what are the things that you see at the beginning every single time? It's just like, oh, there's this guy or girl who should have done some work beforehand. Like, what would the pre-homework be?
I mean, there's two parts to that. So one of the main things I see, obviously, is bike setup.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people are riding, some of the girls are riding hand-me-down bikes from their boyfriends, husbands, whatever. And they'll have risers under the bars. And I'm like, why do you have risers? Oh, Mom, it was my husband's bike. And, I'm riding it now. And I'm like, yeah, you're set up ergonomically for your body and your size. Here's what I would change. Okay, so that's the one part of it is bike setup. Coming in with a bike that is ready to hop logs and tackle rock faces and these things that I like to show people.
Yeah.
The second part of it is stuff you can do, and this is part of what I teach is balance. So, that was something even back in the BMX and mountain bike days is I can sit there on my bike for 2 hours and watch a movie without putting my foot down, right? I've just always done it. I used to, back in Vancouver, I had a condo, and I would literally balance on my bike and watch a movie. And I can do it for hours. And so I show these girls different small little balance maneuvers. If you go on YouTube and look at Rich Larson's, IRC tire guy, a third of his videos are balance moves.
Yeah.
Right? And so I try to teach these small little things that you can do when either you're warming up, before you start riding, in a parking lot when you're just, doing anything, how to do these little figure eights and how to do, full lock turns and all these balance moves. And then even on the trail, like I said, there's things you can do in the trail where you take some of these balance moves and slow down a section, get through it without putting a foot down. It's all, it's a trials rider mentality, really. It's like, can I get through this without dabbing,
Yeah.
So that's how, if I sometimes I do tell the girls, I'm like, they've already come to my clinic and gone away. And I'm like, okay, before you come to the next one, practice these little balance moves. Do it in the parking lot. Do it, when people take a break for, you're riding the trail and someone's taking a break, you can sit there and do balance moves for 5 minutes. Every little bit helps. And the balance moves will dramatically improve your riding. It's so important. So yeah, that's one of the things I just try to reinforce in people is that two wheels, the nature of two wheels requires balance. And the more you can work on balance maneuvers, the better your riding is going to become.
Like I feel like if everyone could just arrive at these things ready to ride, past the safety speech, they're all maximizing your time and their own time.
100%.
It's better.
But in my experience, a lot of the girls are
new.
There's, I want to tackle a different perspective on that as well, because this is something I've had to deal with when I've actually dealt with it myself, is those nerves before showing up to an event or a clinic or a group ride for women that haven't, and I shouldn't just say women because this can apply to guys too. Yeah. For someone showing up to an organized group ride or a clinic or an event, those nerves of thinking you are going to hold everyone up or stand out like a sore thumb or not fit in or it's going to be really cliquey or I've had to, with sledding, especially with the ladies' rides, I get all these messages. I hold an event for ladies, for the ladies' ride, and I get messages from ladies like, I've never unloaded my sled before. My husband always does it. And I went, not a problem. I said, either we will teach you or we'll do it ourselves. One of us will do it for you. Don't let that be a hindrance to you coming out and have a good day. Yeah. Right? That is such a small part of what we're going to do today is if you are afraid to unload your sled out of the back of your truck or off a deck, don't worry. I'll do it for you. I don't want that to be the hindrance. With dirt biking, I know I felt this myself when I, first moved to Kamloops. I showed up at a ladies' ride, and I was like, just the nerves. I'm like, oh my God, who's going to be here? Am I going to be the weak link? I didn't know. It's all these things that go through your head, the mind games we play on ourselves. And I often have to, someone will send me a message, say, I'd really like to show up, but I'm so nervous.
Oh.
And part of my job is to reassure them that we got you. Like, we just please come and we will welcome you with open arms. And I want you to learn. I want you to have a good time. So, just be prepared to ride. Just show up as a rider. You are just a rider like anyone else is. And if I have to do things to make you feel more comfortable, like I'll help you unload your bike or whatever, or, I've had to start bikes where someone will show up on a motocross bike with a kickstart that doesn't like to start once it's warm, I don't mind. It's not, I'm going to do it because I want you to have a good time and I want you to learn and I want you to progress.
Everybody's been there.
I think everyone's been there. I don't care, male or female. But I know I felt it myself, and I know I get these messages from women all the time about, I want to come, but, or I'm afraid that it's going to be like this. And they have some image in their mind that it's going to be, a bunch of mean girls on bikes. And I'm like, hell no, like it is like literally the exact opposite.
What do you mean?
Like all of my friends,
it's not crusty demons?
What's that?
It's not crusty demons from the start doing 50-foot jumps and stuff? Like,
no, God, no. And yeah, and it's really only that first time. If you show up that first time and you meet everyone, you're like, wow, this is so not what I expected, right? And there might be a girl there that's like, expert level A racer, who's the friendliest person in the world, and she's going to come over and say, introduce herself and say, welcome, right? And in your mind, you're like, oh, an A racer's never going to come over and talk to me. Who am I? I'm like, no, it's so not like that at all. Like, these girls are just, 99% are just happy to see you trying something and showing up. And that's 90% of it. Just show up with the right attitude. Attitude goes a long way,
Yep.
And I get it. I was there. I've been there multiple times in my life of showing up somewhere and not feeling like you belong. And then it's really all in your head. And then as soon as you get there, like, hell, the first time I showed up at a World Cup race, I went, what the hell am I doing here? Right? I don't belong here. And then I end up getting sick. And I'm like, okay, maybe I do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I found on the trail, it's always attitude over ability. Like 100%. If you have shit ability but a positive attitude, it doesn't matter. Like that's a win. Yeah. People will help you. If you have both the shit ability and a shit attitude, then you can expect to walk yourself out. But even still, though, most groups will get you home. They just won't take you out again. Attitude is everything. Yeah. Like I wish I could just get that tattooed on me or put a sticker somewhere. But attitude is everything. Yeah. And I'm super vocal. Like I'm vocal, but attitude is everything. So that all the girls that in my group know that attitude is important, right? That you don't have to come here and beat yourself up about not making a line. Yeah. Attitude is everything. Try it again or don't. Nobody's judging you here. But your attitude will go a long way when you come into a ride. Attitude is everything. So just one of my kind of mantras that I live by and if I can reinforce that and support that, I'm doing my job. I feel it. I think so. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode. I want to thank my guests for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. A special thank you to you, my supporters. Without you, this would not be possible. If you enjoyed the show, give it a 5-star rating. And if you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. If this is your first time listening, I encourage you to take the 3-episode challenge. Once again, thank you for your continued support, and stay tuned to find out what's coming up next time.